Recently, I saw a direct correlation between what I said and what got created in my life. For a bit of context, I've been listening to a lot of Neville Goddard lectures recently, and I got curious about this once again. Um, Not only our thoughts, but the words that we just use as a throwaway words, even. So I wondered if those throwaway statements, or even statements that we felt very deeply, has any connection to what gets created in our life in the upcoming days or months. So one thing was really interesting that really sparked my interest in this topic again was Neville quotes a poet. I forgot his name. He says something like, "But what have I said? What have I done?" And there was another reference to one of the religious books in Christianity. Maybe it was Gospel, can't be sure. He mentions all the books, like the Old Testament, the New Testament, and so I forgot. But the idea was that people would be carving images inside the cave. And in his understanding, the cave would be the inside of your mind, the thoughts that you think, the things that you say inside your own mind, in your head, within your skull, gets carved into the walls, and that has a connection to what gets created in the upcoming days. So this was on my mind. And 3 or 4 days ago, my boyfriend had a tooth surgery. And it was a significant to me surgery. I personally don't really like operations and things like that. So they would do some drilling and things like that in his mouth, and I was absolutely fussed about it. I disliked the idea, but he had made his decision. But I was so fussed that I got it shocked me, because usually I'm not a fussy person at all, and I don't really worry about much. So my own reaction to that fussiness, and his reaction to my fussiness brought awareness to my behavior. And in a moment of me trying to explain why I'm behaving this way, I recounted some memories where my sister was very little and she was having this surgery. It's a tiny surgery, like an appendix removal, and how it bothered me, how I cannot stand even the thought that something that I love gets cut, or something is done to something that I love, like physically abrasive. So my statement was, and I was tearing up as I was explaining this to him, I said, something cuts the thing that I love. I cannot stand it. I cannot stand it. And I was very emotional and animated. So anyways, the next day, or the day after, I was trying to make dinner, and there was a can of tuna in my house, and I opened it halfway and the rest I couldn't. And mind you, this is not the first time I'm opening a can of tuna, and I usually use a piece of cloth or my kitchen towel or something to push the other part out. But I don't know what possessed me that day. I thought, I will just push it with my thumb and the rest will come off. And I sustained a very deep cut on my thumb. Sorry about the grotesqueness. And the bleeding was such, it was a deep enough cut that it took me quite a bit of time to stop the bleeding. And now, anytime something like this happens to me, I become absolutely aware and in the moment. And I was wondering, why did I create this? What possessed me? Like, I don't consider myself a person who is not careful or doesn't know that it is dangerous to do something like that. And I have never done this before. I very rarely sustain cuts or bruises. Maybe I'm a bit too careful. Anyways, but the depth of the cut and the amount of bleeding brought my entire consciousness into focus in that moment. And I did what I did to take care of myself, and I presented that question, which I often do. What created this? What have I said? What have I done? I wonder. And this memory came back to me. Something that I love. No, I said, something cuts the thing that I love. Well, guess what else I love? I love myself. And I started laughing. And this is one of my favorite experiences, when I realize something or ask a question or understand something, and then I am shown directly, as a practical example, as a demonstration, so to speak. There are more parts to this, which I will talk about in my next videos. But there is always an absolute correlation between what you say and what happens to you. And often there is not a direct logical connection to it. So, or it takes a long period of time for that thought or the words or the sentence to manifest, so we don't really remember it. But there is always, absolutely, without a question, a connection. And it came from you. Something cuts the thing that I love. Yeah, I hope this helps somebody. I had a very strong impulse to share this, so I'm just going to share it as it is. And have a nice day.